A new arrival at Chandwell. This beautiful Swallow-liveried HST was delivered after being on pre-order for months. It lasted less than a day on the layout. Here's my update for August. It's the end of August already, and it's been a milestone month for my Chandwell channel. I've been looking forward to this HST arriving in Chandwell for months. I have so many fond memories of a childhood spent riding these, and I couldn't be happier with how it looks. I was less happy though that it had to be sent back. I've passed 500 subscribers to my YouTube channel, which is a milestone I never dreamt of achieving, and I'll say thank you to some channels which have inspired me and helped me to get here. Join me then for my 500 subscriber special update for August 2020. This is Chandwell, where I'm scratch building a city viaduct layout in N-gauge. If you want to follow along, please subscribe. Hello, welcome to Chandwell. Before we have a look at what I've been up to in August, I just want to recognise the milestone that my channel passed this month. I've now passed 500 subscribers, which is something I never thought would even be possible. The fact that 500 people want to subscribe and watch the evolution of my layout is really encouraging, and it must show that I'm doing something at least right. And if anybody is enjoying what I'm doing, then that's all the better. There's been 4 particular channels that I wanted to say thank you to for both encouraging and inspiring me over the last year with what I've done in Chandwell. And I'm going to intersperse those with the rest of this video. So, number 1. So Stephen at Elvenhome, thank you for all the encouragement that you've given me on commenting on all my videos. I particularly enjoyed your Tool Time Tips series where you introduced various different tools and glues and everything else that you use. I'm really amazed by whenever I have a question in one of my YouTube videos, your answer is always, go and have a look at episode 32 or whatever. It's like you've covered it all. It's a brilliant resource, very entertaining, and it's an excellent channel. I bought this Dapol HST and 5 Mark III coaches from TMC, and I've been looking forward to getting it on Chandwell. I spent a lot of summers with my family travelling on North East Rail Rover tickets between Berwick-upon-Tweed and Doncaster, and so we saw a lot of these in those late 80s, early 90s days. I opted for the TMC weathering, and other than specifying the medium level, I didn't know what to expect. I'm absolutely over the moon with how TMC have weathered these locos. It wasn't cheap at about 50 quid, but it looks simply stunning and is worth every penny. I particularly like the twin smudges of smoke down the front of the cab. It's exactly how I remember them. I can almost smell the exhaust and brakes from my childhood. The coaches are weathered with the TMC value weathering, which is about £7 a coach. The effect is subtle, but it makes the whole train look like a whole, and it really does fit in with the grimy look I'm going for on Chandwell. If you follow N-gauge layouts on YouTube, you've no doubt seen the excellent Piccadilly layout by John Warner. Not only is John making a huge model scratch built of Manchester Piccadilly, which is an awesome station in its own right, his channel covers everything from programming DCC to weathering to making his brilliant canal side scene that he's working on at the moment. John, you really inspired me with the back scene, although mine is in a bit of a disarray at the moment, it's fallen down a bit, but your laid back scene technique worked really well, and coupled with the forced perspective stuff that we both ended up doing around about the same time, I found that really invaluable. I think as a train, the HST looks fabulous once it's on the layout. The way that it curves around the viaduct looks wonderful. Yes, the viaduct is more tightly curved than it should be, so it's not very prototypical, but it does remind me of going around the viaduct in Berwick-upon-Tweed, where you can see the front of the train from behind as you were going round, which used to thrill me so much as a child. Really works nicely. I went with 5 coaches, and I did design the layout with this in mind quite a while ago, but a slight miscalculation. The 5 coaches plus the 2 power cars don't quite fit into my fiddle yard cassettes. So you can get 1 power car and the 5 coaches, but that last power car just doesn't quite get onto the cassette. It gets out of the way, you can't see it from the front of the layout, it is inside the tunnel. So to move it from one track to another, it's a case of uncoupling it, taking the cassette out, moving it around, and then manually re-railing that power car in the tunnel. It's not ideal, but I'd rather have the 5 coaches plus the 2 power cars rather than 4 coaches. Chris Carter, you're making a fantastic, huge layout around a room. It's a 4-track main line. I think you want it to take 6 minutes for trains to get around in the end. I can't imagine that length of speed, that length of line. It takes about 30 seconds, even very slowly, for trains to traverse the whole of Chandwell. I think you were the very first person to ever comment on one of my videos, once when this was just mocked up out of card, so thank you for your encouragement there. Your 2 viaducts that run side by side just before going into that S-bend with the 4-track main line coming into 4 Oak Street is absolutely spectacular, and it's one of my favourite looking layouts.
The HST has working lights on both ends, both the powered and the dummy power car. As you can see here, they do flash sometimes. I think that is rather down to the dirty track, especially on the point work at the moment. You can see once it gets to the point it starts to flash, so I think that's down to me cleaning my track rather than anything else. I'm really happy with it. Considering this is N-gauge and therefore tiny, the detail is incredible. All of my experience with N-gauge was 20 or 30 years ago, and this is just something else. Just the detail on the bogies, right down to the wire clip things that are looped around are there. The weathering by TMC is astonishing. That lovely exhaust plume there down the cab is exactly what I was hoping for. The coaches with their value weathering all look really nicely together. The printing on them is amazing. Even the gangway ends are coloured in on the doors, and all of the detail is on there. Couldn't be happier with it. It's an absolutely amazing model, and I'm so pleased to finally have my hands on it.
So this month I put on the first Inkscape tutorial where I'm going to follow the building of a works building from start to finish, showing you particularly how I use Inkscape to do my scratch builds. So that one went on to YouTube last week, where I completed the paper mock-up of the building. If you haven't seen that, you can watch it. It takes about half an hour to get to this point. I'm currently editing the second part of that video, which is where we take the paper mock-up and turn it into a card mock-up, fixing the mistakes from the paper mock-up. That one will be going onto YouTube in 2 weeks. I'm currently now at the next stage, which is building the actual building itself. So far I've got the inner skeleton of the building. It fits the space perfectly, and I knew it would because of the mock-ups that I'd made. But if we take a look, how I work is I always work from the inside out. Anybody who's made a scale scenes building will know the technique, because it's very similar, if not the same as the technique that those kits work. I'm using the scale scenes scale glaze windows. So if we can just see in there, should be able to just focus, we'll see one of the windows, and on this side we've included a door as well. That door was just downloaded from textures.com, and if you follow the actual series you'll see how that works. So this is the inside of the building, but obviously the challenge with this one is there's going to be an archway from the road through here. So that's going to be an archway, which means that these 2 internal walls are actually external walls. So I've started to that end by putting the brick paper on. So you can see the brickwork on the outer side of that. So that's coming along okay. We've got some concrete roof on the top. So I think it's going to be okay. The reason I'm putting in the internal rooms like this is it lets me put LED lights on the inside on individual rooms if I want, so I can have some windows lit up and some not. I'm not going overboard on the detail. I've put some floorboards on and some dodgy old peeling paint work on the walls. I'm not putting anything else inside. Could spend hours putting furniture or machinery or people in there, but I'm not going to do that. So like I say, episode 1 of that series created the paper mock-up. Episode 2 will create the card mock-up and fix the mistakes that I made in this one. And then episode 3, which I'm only just starting to record now, will focus on the inner part of the real building, followed by episode 4 where I'll put the skins on, and then episode 5 where I'll detail it. There might then be an episode 6 for weathering, but maybe not. It's focused on Inkscape after all. So that is the main thing that I've been working on in August. Another large N-gauge layout which I really enjoy is Jeff's Pride Parkway, which runs around his loft. He's a fellow northeastern N-gauger, although I've migrated down to Yorkshire now. My heart is still up there where you are. It was really nice to see Newton Cap Viaduct in one of your recent videos, because I grew up there and spent a lot of time around that part of the world. I particularly enjoyed the recent episodes on making trees. There's not a single tree on Chandwell yet, but there's an excellent spot over here for lots of trees, so I've got that one bookmarked. And your attention to detail, particularly with things like your level crossing, are very inspiring. So thank you for your encouragement when it comes to Chandwell, but your layout is one of my favourites on YouTube, and I do enjoy watching that.
So it didn't take long for me to realise that this happened almost every time that it went round any curve on the layout on any track. In fact, I couldn't get it from one end to the other without this happening, with the dummy power car leading. I noticed that the dummy power car doesn't wheel freely. It has a lot of resistance in there. The wheels don't turn very well at all. If we compare this to a couple of coaches running, the coaches run absolutely beautifully. They are totally freewheeling and they run just as you'd expect. So it doesn't take much of a push to let them run onto the train and couple on there. Do the same kind of thing to the dummy power car though, and it hardly moves at all. So what's up? What's causing it? The problem's with this front bogie. It doesn't seem to sit right, and the wheels don't turn freely. They seem to be catching the underside of the chassis, which has a little bit of a bulge on it, I think. If I pull the bogie back, the wheels do spin freely, so it's not the wheels themselves, they're definitely catching on the underside. So this is manifesting itself like this. If I put this on the track now, I'll show you what's happening. I think the problem is these two front wheels, they're not turning properly, so that when I put a little bit of pressure on and push it from the back, you can see that the rear wheels are rising up. They're only rising up a fraction of a millimetre, but the flanges on these wheels are so small that it's actually enough for the flanges to clear the top of the rails, and then when it's going around the curves, they essentially just pop off the tracks. It's happening all the time. I'm pretty sure it shouldn't be like this. Unfortunately, I don't have the skill or the knowledge to know even how to start disassembling this to try and work out what's going on. I just daren't give them a good tug. So it's going back to TMC where it came from. They've offered to take it back free of charge, giving me a postage label to send, which is really good. So all I need to do is bag it up, put it in the post and hope for the best.
So that HST, it was a disappointing story in the end, but I'm sure TMC will fix it or replace it. I'll have it back on the layout this week. Like I say, I'm really pleased with it. It's a beautiful model. The power car that works is silent, it runs smoothly. It's probably the best train that I've got on the layout. I'm looking forward to using it some more, even though it doesn't quite fit into the fiddle yard. We'll be alright with that. It's going to make some excellent photo and video opportunities once the ballasting is finished on the layout and it curves around this viaduct. It's going to look fantastic. If you want to see that when it happens and you don't want to miss it, please subscribe by clicking the Class 47 logo just down there. I've put a link to the Inkscape series up there, and I've also put a link to another video that you might be interested in just down there. So thank you to my 500 subscribers. I'm glad you all like it. Thank you very much, and I'll see you next time.